All the way from the start, I can feel it in my heart, like all the way from the start.
Hey, what's going on out there? I'm Sean Devine. Hope you all are doing well. Today I've got a new tutorial for you all, and it's about dealing with harsh vocals, specifically harsh S's, and just really unpleasant sibilants in your vocals. Now, I've done some videos on this before, but today I want to cover a more extreme case. A lot of you out there are dealing with this, and you're using some budget microphones, maybe not the greatest preamps. And this is one of the things that really stands out. First, when you're recording vocals with kind of, subpar setups, you're going to hear a lot of these really harsh sort of sibilant frequencies. And so I want to show you some ways that we can deal with this that will also help retain brightness. So you're going to get that nice presence for your vocal, but we're going to give it that warm sound that you're used to in a lot of commercial records. So let me go ahead and just play back this little bridge section that we're going to be dealing with, as well as my verse here.
But it's not the old me.
Invested my self-worth in others. Found out real love ain't under covers. Pretty young faces all over the places, but they can't reach you when you faded. So I look up to the sky, something you can't deny. When the words spill out on the pages, night after night, I booked my first flight, all paid, and it was all of us some music I made. Think I keep pushing, even when it looks bleak. I was Memphis Blue, LA Angels, we seek and go.
All right, so you get the idea there. Let's deal with this little bridge vocal first. I want to show you, in the most extreme cases, what we can do for some S sounds where the de-esser may just not do it. You might put a de-esser on a vocal, and of course you're trying to not push the de-esser threshold too heavy. We don't want to pull it down too low, but sometimes when you put the de-esser on there and you set it properly, the S's just still are a little too harsh, and it may be just part of the performance, and it's just not very pleasing to the ear. So these little phrases at the end of these on my bridge section, that's kind of what we're dealing with. It's
Self-worth in others.
really harsh.
In others.
So rather than try to rely totally on the de-essing, which we're going to do some de-essing here in a minute, I'm just going to do an automation of the volume. So you can do this for any S throughout your performance. You can just draw in a volume automation on any of those parts that are a little bit extreme. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to put a fade here onto the end of this phrase. And this is the aux track, so we're controlling all these layers. But I just want that S to be smoother rather than being, I was a little harsh with it. So let's try and smooth that out a little bit.
Self-worth in others. Found out real love ain't.
So already I pulled it down a little bit too much, but
Self-worth in others. Found out real. Self-worth in others. Found out real love. Self-worth in others. Found out real love ain't under. Self-worth in others. Found out real. Self-worth in others. Found out real love.
So that's smoother. It makes the S just a little quicker. Let me just turn that off so we can compare them.
Others. Found out real. Self-worth in others. Found out real.
And with.
Self-worth in others. Found out real love ain't under covers.
So we'll do the same thing on this one over here. We'll just draw in a nice little fade. And that should do it.
Ain't under covers. Pretty.
So that's a little too much. Let's bring that back a little bit.
Ain't under covers. Pretty on face. Ain't under covers. Pretty on faces. Ain't under covers. Pretty on faces. Ain't under covers. Pretty on faces all up.
So it's a lot better. A lot better. So now once we've drawn in those automation of the volume on the most extreme cases, then we don't have to rely totally on the de-essing, and we can just kind of tame what we need to with the de-esser now. So you're going to notice that I have multiple de-essers here. I'm using 2 de-essers on the bridge, and then I'm using 3 de-essers on the verse. So a lot of you are like, whoa, why are you going to do that? That's a little extreme. It is extreme, but I'm going to show you how we're using them in a way that we're not taking away too much of the high end, and what it is actually attenuating. These de-essers are attenuating very different things, and we're using them subtly. So let me pull up the first de-esser here for the bridge section, and I'm just going to turn it on, and we'll just keep an eye on what it's doing here.
Invested my self-worth in others. Found out real love ain't under covers. Pretty young faces all over the places, but they can't reach you when you faded. So I look up to the sky, something you can't deny.
So if you notice here on my range control, I have it at 3 dB, which means that we're not attenuating this a great deal. It's just kind of hitting it a little bit, just a subtle little reduction there. And we've got this range, the frequency band down here. It's a wide band control on the Pro DS for Fab filter. So now let me pull up the second de-esser, which is just the waves de-esser, and let's take a look at what it does.
Invested my self-worth in others. Found out real love ain't under covers. Pretty young faces all over the places, but they can't reach you when you faded.
So this one is attenuating right at the 4500 range, and it's going to be a little narrower sort of attenuation. And then we're doing about, between 3 and 6 dB attenuation. So that's quite a bit. But again, we're focused on this one sort of range that tends to be a problematic area for my vocals, and as well as a lot of other male vocals in that S area. So those in tandem, let's play it back here.
Invested my self-worth in others. Found out real love ain't under covers. Pretty young faces all over the places, but they can't reach you when you faded. So I look.
Lot smoother sound. Still bright. We've still got a heavy high-end boost up here at like 14K to give us that nice air on the vocal, but then running through these two de-essers that are kind of tag teaming the sibilants there, it works great. So let's just turn them off, and then we'll turn off our automation here so we can hear the difference.
Invested my self-worth in others. Found out real love ain't under covers. Pretty young faces all over the places, but they can't reach you when you faded.
So with both de-essers and our little automation rod.
Invested my self-worth in others. Found out real love ain't under covers. Pretty young faces all over the places, but they can't reach you when you faded.
Just a much better, warmer kind of tone there. So let's move on to the verse here. I want to show you what I'm doing on this one. Again, we're using 3 de-essers. So I want to talk about what those are doing specifically. Again, we've got the same de-esser here, the Pro DS on the vocal first, and the range, very subtle, 2 dB. So let's just turn that on and keep an eye on it. Let me go over here to our verse.
So I look up to the sky, something you can't deny. When the words spill out on the pages, night after night, I booked my first flight, all paid, and it was all of us some music I made. Think I keep pushing, even when it looks bleak. I was Memphis Blue, LA Angels we seek, and go up and above all opinions. Lost a front man in my first band.
So just kissing some of the S's with that, and then I have this de-esser here that's working at a very different frequency, lower at 3300, which is going to be more of the sh rather than the s sound. So if you watch this.
So I look up to the sky, something you can't deny. When the words spill out on the pages, night after night, I booked my first flight all.
This is not attenuating anything right now because we've got the threshold set to a point where it's only going to detect that specific sort of sh sound. So it's just sort of sitting there waiting for something like that to happen, which is going to happen later in the verse. I'm going to show you. But let's move on to the next de-esser, which this is going to be a little bit more of the standard de-esser, although our frequency is at 5500 for the verse, where the bridge was at more 4500. And the threshold is pulled down a little lower. So let's just watch this in action.
So I look up to the sky, something you can't deny. When the words spill out on the pages, night after night, I booked my first flight, all paid, and it was all of us some music I made. Think I keep pushing.
All right, so there's our sh sound on that pushing. So let's pull back up the other de-esser here. I'm just going to pull them all up so that we can keep an eye on them. But I want you to focus on this one, the one in the middle, the sh.
Think I keep pushing, even when it looks bleak. I was night, I booked my first flight, all paid, and it was all of us some music I made. Think I keep pushing, even.
So right there, you can see it just attenuates that sh sound.
After the night, I booked my first flight, all paid, and it was all of us some music I made. Think I keep pushing, even when it looks bleak.
So that's going to pick up that frequency that these other two are a little bit too high to attenuate. Now, could you do a volume ride on that? The same thing that we were looking at before? Absolutely. You could just go into that point and draw in a ride. That would work as well. But all three of those together are giving me that nice, warm, yet still present tone. The key here is you'll notice that I'm not overworking any of these. If I was using just one de-esser, I might try to push it too much, and then we get an unpleasant effect. But if we use a couple of different de-essers that have slightly different sort of focuses in terms of frequency, we can just kiss each of them a little bit, use it very, very subtly, and it's going to give us a much better result. So the last thing I want to show you guys is a trick that I use a lot of times when I am overworking the de-esser just a little bit in certain cases. So let me turn on my automation, and you're going to see right here in the verse that I am automating the threshold on, I believe it's this de-esser. Yep. So what this is doing is right here at these points in my performance, it's dropping the threshold so that it's not working as hard. The de-esser is not going to attenuate these parts so much. Now let me show you why I did this. So if I just press play here.
So I look up to the sky, something you can't deny.
Let's turn off the automation.
So I look up to the sky, something you can't deny. So I look up to the sky, something you can't.
So you can hear on so and sky, it's attenuating quite a bit to the point where I can't really hear my pronunciation of the S's. So that's a problem. And again, some of these points where that happens, I want to kind of back off the de-esser a little bit. So that's why I automated the threshold. So now let's turn that on and watch what this does. Just watch the threshold control here.
So I look up to the sky, something you can't deny. When the words spill. So I look up to the sky, something you can't deny.
So very briefly, it just backs off and it lets those S's push through so that we can hear what I am articulating in those particular parts of the performance. All right, y'all, so we've taken a look at a few different ways that I like to control harsh sibilants and really unpleasant frequencies in a vocal. Used multiple de-essers, which is not something you would typically think to do. However, again, the key here is that we're using them all subtly and in tandem to give us a better result so that we're not overworking the de-esser. We also did some automation. You can use automation for the volume of your vocal tracks or your aux vocal tracks to tame those really harsh spots or points in the performance that you need to control a little bit better. And you can also automate things on the actual de-esser, like the threshold, so that it's not working too hard on certain parts of the performance. So anyways, y'all, I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. If you learned anything in this video, please like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon.
But they can't reach it when you faded. So I look up to the sky, something you can't deny. When the words spill out on the pages, night after night, I booked my first flight, all paid, and it was all of us some music I made. Think I keep pushing, even when it looks bleak. I was Memphis blue, LA